Welcome to our channel. Today, we're diving into the wild rise and fall of the dot-com bubble, a story of big dreams and even bigger losses. If you love unraveling financial mysteries, hit subscribe and let's jump in. The early 1990s were a time of quiet revolution. Computers were just starting to make their way into people's homes, and a few people had discovered a mysterious new network, the internet. This World Wide Web seemed like magic, a place where people could send messages to each other instantly, find information, and even chat in real time. At first, only scientists, researchers, and computer hobbyists explored the web. It was slow and often confusing, but then something changed. The internet started to become simpler. Web browsers like Netscape emerged, letting people access websites easily. Suddenly, the internet wasn't just for tech experts, it was for everyone. With this shift, people began to dream. Could the internet connect everyone in the world? And if it could it also make people rich? A new age was beginning, one that promised to change the world forever. Some visionaries saw what others couldn't. Young entrepreneurs like Jeff Bezos, who started Amazon as an online bookstore, believed the internet could reshape shopping itself. Jerry Yang and David Filo created Yahoo, a simple website to help people find things online. Each step they took laid the foundation for the internet's future. Starting an online company was risky. Few people had credit cards, and fewer still trusted shopping on the web. Yet these pioneers persisted, working out of garages, small offices, or even their own homes. They were chasing a dream, something that most people couldn't understand. And when they succeeded, even in small ways, it proved that the internet could be a business. This realization was like a spark, igniting the imagination of entrepreneurs everywhere. Soon, people weren't just using the internet, they were trying to make their fortunes on it. The mid-1990s saw these early internet companies grow. Some, like Amazon and Yahoo, decided to go public, meaning they offered shares of their companies to the public for the first time. Wall Street took notice, seeing these companies as a new investment opportunity. Amazon's initial public offering, IPO, in 1997 marked a turning point. Jeff Bezos' online bookstore was valued at nearly $500 million, even though it had never turned a profit. People believed that Amazon and the internet itself would only grow, and they wanted in. Yahoo also went public, and its stock skyrocketed. Suddenly, the internet wasn't just a curious network, it was a financial sensation. Seeing these stocks rise quickly, investors across the country began to wonder if internet companies could make them rich, too. The success of these early internet companies fueled a frenzy. Every day, new startups appeared, promising to revolutionize industries, all with the internet as their tool. Companies added com to their names, hoping to capture the excitement and attract investors. Wall Street was ready to support this new wave. Venture capitalists, the investors who take big risks on young companies, started funding internet startups with millions of dollars. These companies didn't need profits or a clear plan. All they needed was a story, a promise that they were the future. The excitement spread to ordinary people too. Stories of young internet millionaires filled newspapers and magazines. It seemed like anyone with a good idea and a website could make a fortune overnight. As the 90s continued, internet companies went public at an astonishing rate. This process, called an IPO, let investors buy shares of the company. Once public, stocks often surged, bringing quick profits to anyone who invested early. One IPO after another, companies raised millions in hours. Companies with no profit and barely any revenue were valued in the billions. It didn't matter if they had a business plan. People wanted in, and they were willing to pay high prices to get it. The media fueled the excitement, celebrating every new dot-com millionaire and each record-breaking IPO. In the minds of the public, investing in the internet seemed like a sure path to wealth. By the late 90s, investing in dot-com companies wasn't just for professionals. Teachers, plumbers, and students all threw their money into internet stocks, convinced they could double or triple their money in a few months. People began to talk about stocks with their friends, at family dinners, and even in grocery store lines. Financial advisors warned them to be cautious, but many ignored these warnings, convinced the internet was the future. It was a time of optimism and excitement, and people were willing to overlook the fact that many of these companies had no clear way to make money. The dream of becoming rich from the internet was too powerful to resist. With so much money available, people started launching companies with only the vaguest plans. Some of these companies had names like Pets.com, promising to sell pet supplies online. Others, like Webvan, aimed to deliver groceries. These companies received millions in funding, even though few had profits and some didn't even have revenue. They spent huge amounts on advertising, trying to create awareness and attract customers. But building a real business took time, and many of them weren't prepared for that. As long as their stock prices rose, no one seemed to care about their financials. But behind the scenes, these companies were struggling to stay afloat. The media became a powerful force in driving the dot-com bubble. Every day, headlines celebrated the latest startup or talked about the latest millionaire made by dot-com stocks. stocks. TV shows and magazines glorified these young tech CEOs, making them seem like heroes and geniuses. It was easy to believe that the internet would make everyone rich. People tuned into the news, reading and watching stories about the new digital age, but they rarely saw the downside, the companies that were struggling or failing behind the scenes agreements. Some economists began to notice problems. They pointed out that stock prices were disconnected from reality and that many dot-com companies had no path to profitability. Yet Wall Street analysts downplayed these warnings. Many people trusted these experts and believed in the dot-com dream, even though the financial risks were growing. The signs were there, but most people ignored them. The excitement was too strong, and the promise of quick wealth kept them invested. 1999 was the peak of the dot-com bubble. Hundreds of companies went public that year, and stock prices soared to record heights. It seemed like every company with an internet idea was suddenly worth billions. This period saw intense spending, not just by companies, but by investors, who often borrowed money just to buy more dot-com stocks. The economy was booming, and people felt unstoppable, but all bubbles eventually burst, and this one was about to come crashing down. The signs were there, but few wanted to believe it. In March 2000, the market began to shift. Some large investors started to sell their dot-com stocks, fearing they were overvalued. The sell-off started small, but quickly grew. Suddenly, investors panicked. Stock prices began to fall, and every investor tried to get out before things got worse. It was a mass exodus, a race to sell before the losses grew. The excitement that had fueled the dot-com boom turned to fear. People watched as their savings vanished in hours. The crash was swift and brutal. Within weeks, billions of dollars disappeared from the market. Companies like Pets.com and Webvan, once valued in the billions, the ceiling. For many of these companies, there was no recovery. Pets.com, once hailed as a promising online retail venture, shut down within months of the crash. Webvan, which had invested millions in warehouses and delivery vans, also declared bankruptcy, leaving thousands without jobs and investors without hope. The scale of the losses was shocking. Overnight, entire fortunes vanished. Those who had invested their savings in dot-com stocks, convinced they would keep rising, faced financial ruin. The bubble had burst, leaving a trail of devastation across Silicon Valley and Wall Street alike. Ordinary people who had invested in the hype were hit the hardest. Teachers, construction workers, and office employees all had placed their faith and savings in internet stocks, believing the promises of easy wealth. Now, they were watching those dreams shatter. Some people had borrowed money to buy these stocks, believing the returns would cover the debt, but now they were left with mounting bills and no way to pay them. For many, the crash led to severe financial struggles, forcing them to sell homes or declare bankruptcy. It was a sobering reminder of the risks that come with speculative investments. For the public, it was a painful lesson in how easily excitement and ambition could turn into ruin. Wall Street, too, felt the impact. Banks and venture capitalists who had poured billions into dot-com companies watched their investments shrink to nothing. Many firms took massive losses, and some analysts were criticized for promoting companies that had never been financially sound. This crisis led to a loss of trust in both the market and in the analysts who had promised endless growth. Investors became wary, questioning every company that claimed to be the next big thing. The bubble's collapse had broken the internet fever, leaving only skepticism in its place. For a time, it seemed the dream of internet riches was over. People wondered if the internet had been overhyped, if it was more a passing trend than a lasting revolution. Silicon Valley, once buzzing with activity and wealth, entered a period of quiet. Many companies closed their doors, unable to sustain operations. Office parks that had been packed with startups became ghost towns, symbols of the crash. The sudden silence was shocking. Engineers, marketers, and entrepreneurs who had once thrived in the boom found themselves jobless. The tech culture that had once promised endless innovation now seemed broken, leaving behind a sobering reality. Those who remained in Silicon Valley had to adapt, scaling down their ambitions and learning to work within realistic limits. It was a humbling period for an industry that had once felt unstoppable. In the aftermath, people began to ask, how did this happen? The dot-com bubble wasn't the first market bubble, but it was the first to emerge from something as new and fast-growing as the internet. The excitement of technology had blinded many to the reality of financial limits. Economists and experts began to analyze the factors that had fueled the bubble. They pointed to excessive optimism, media hype, and a general lack of financial oversight. It was clear that everyone, from investors to company founders, had ignored the basic principles of business and profit. The dot-com bubble became a case study in financial markets, showing how enthusiasm and innovation, when unchecked, could lead to disastrous results. While many companies failed, a few managed to survive. Amazon, for example, had faced its own struggles during the crash. Jeff Bezos and his team were forced to cut costs and focus on long-term growth. But Amazon had one advantage over many other dot-com companies. It had a clear plan for generating generating profit. Similarly, eBay survived by focusing on its core business of online auctions. Unlike many other dot-coms, eBay had a reliable revenue stream, allowing it to weather the crash without collapsing. These survivors adapted, learning valuable lessons from the bubble. In time, they would grow even stronger, building companies that would become central to the internet's future. In the wake of the crash, Silicon Valley and Wall Street adopted a more cautious approach. Investors no longer threw money at startups with vague promises. Companies needed solid business plans, proof of revenue, and realistic financial goals before they could attract funding. This new caution extended to the media as well. Reporters and analysts became more skeptical, questioning every claim made by tech companies. There was a shift in culture, a move toward transparency and accountability that had been missing during the bubble. It was a much-needed change, a safeguard against the kind of reckless investment and unchecked hype that had fueled the bubble's rise and fall. Though the crash was painful, it also laid the groundwork for a stronger internet industry. In the years that followed, companies focused on sustainable growth, prioritizing profits over hype. This approach paved the way for tech giants like Google, Facebook, and eventually social media platforms. Investors became more cautious, but also more knowledgeable, learning how to identify solid business models. As a result, the internet industry matured, attracting professionals who were committed to building lasting companies. The internet wasn't a quick path to riches anymore, but it had become a stable industry with real potential for long-term impact. Interviews with people who had been part of the dot-com boom revealed a mix of regret and wisdom. Many early investors and entrepreneurs reflected on their choices, sharing stories of lost fortunes and dreams that had crumbled. Some felt guilty for the role they played in fueling the hype, while others looked back with nostalgia, remembering the excitement of those early days. But most agreed on one thing: they had learned hard lessons about money, ambition, and the risks of unchecked optimism. Their reflections offered a rare glimpse into the personal toll of the bubble, showing the human side of a financial disaster. The dot-com bubble left behind valuable lessons for future generations. Business students studied it as a cautionary tale, and investors used it to guide their decisions in new industries like biotech and clean energy. It taught people to question the hype, to look beyond promises and flashy ideas. The internet itself was revolutionary, but as the bubble showed, not every company on the internet was destined for success. In this way, the dot-com bubble became more than a financial event. It became a lesson in wisdom and caution, shaping the way people viewed technology and investment. In the years after the bubble, trust in technology gradually returned. The internet evolved, becoming a reliable tool for communication, shopping, and education. But now, people viewed it with a more critical eye. Tech companies learned to earn public trust by focusing on transparency, ethics, and genuine value. This shift helped rebuild faith in the internet, ensuring that it would be used responsibly and thoughtfully. As the internet became a part of everyday life, the lessons of the bubble lived on. It was a painful period, but it ensured that future technology companies would be built on stronger, more stable foundations. The dot-com bubble left a mark on technology, finance, and society. It changed the way people thought about wealth, business, and the power of the internet. For many, it was a time of incredible highs and devastating lows. Those who experienced it firsthand would never forget the thrill and heartbreak of the dot-com era. The lessons of the bubble were burned into their memories, shaping how they approached business and investment for the rest of their lives. Though the bubble burst, its impact remained, influencing everything from venture capital practices to the culture of Silicon Valley itself. The dot-com bubble left a lasting legacy, one that reshaped the entire technology landscape. While many companies vanished, their bold ideas set the stage for the next wave of innovation. The concept of online shopping, streaming, and digital communication, all pioneered during the bubble, found new life in a more stable internet era. The bubble taught Silicon Valley that real growth takes time. This lesson would lead to the rise of companies that balanced innovation with responsibility. Giants like Amazon, Google, and Facebook took the internet from a novelty to an essential part of life, achieving the dreams the early dot-coms had started. The tech culture became one of persistence and caution. The bust had shown that while the internet was a powerful tool, it could only change the world if backed by real, sustainable growth. The bubble's burst became the bedrock for a smarter, more resilient tech industry. As the years passed, people look back on the dot-com bubble with mixed feelings. Some saw it as a cautionary tale, a warning of what happens when hype overtakes reality. Others saw it as a necessary step in the internet's growth, a wild, chaotic era that ultimately helped the tech industry mature. Today's tech entrepreneurs are reminded of the dot-com bubble whenever a new next big thing comes along. They remember the risks of unchecked ambition and the importance of building something real, not just selling a dream. It's a lesson that continues to guide decisions in Silicon Valley and beyond. The dot-com bubble bubble may have burst, but its story is far from forgotten. It lives on as a reminder of both the internet's potential and its peril, a tale of fortune, failure, and the power of human imagination. In its rise and fall, it showed us the best and worst of what innovation can bring. And so, the dot-com bubble remains a defining chapter in the history of technology, a time when dreams grew too big, only to crash down to reality. Yet from the ashes of this bubble emerged a smarter, stronger digital world. The journey of the internet continues, driven by lessons learned and a determination to never repeat the mistakes of the past. To get more interesting stories like this from us, join us by subscribing to uncover more stories from the world of finance, technology, and beyond.